Random House Audio presents The Paris Vendetta by Steve Barry, read for you by Scott Brick. Prologue, Giza Plateau, Egypt, August 1799. General Napoleon Bonaparte dismounted from his horse and stared up at the pyramid. Two more lay nearby, but this was the grandest of the three. What a mighty prize his conquest had yielded. The ride south yesterday from Cairo had been uneventful. 200 armed men had accompanied him, as it was foolhardy to venture this far out into Egypt alone. He'd left his contingent a mile away, camped for the night. He'd arrived ashore near Alexandria 15 months ago with 34,000 men, 1,000 guns, 700 horses, and 100,000 rounds of ammunition. He'd quickly advanced south and taken the capital, Cairo. Then he'd fought the Mamelukes in a glorious conflict he'd dubbed the Battle of the Pyramids. Those former Turkish slaves had ruled Egypt for 500 years, and what a sight! There had been thousands of warriors, dressed in colorful garb, mounted atop magnificent stallions. His troops had fought bravely, and while suffering only 200 French dead, he'd captured virtually the entire enemy army, gaining control of Lower Egypt. One reporter had written that a handful of French subdued a quarter of the globe. Not exactly true, but it sounded wonderful. During the past 14 months, ruling this nation as commander-in-chief, he'd discovered that he loved the desert. He also loved the Egyptian way of life, where possessions counted little and character much. They also trusted Providence, as did he. "Welcome, General. Such a glorious evening for a visit," Gaspard Monge called out in his usual cheerful tone. Napoleon enjoyed the pugnacious older Frenchman. Though a learned man, Monge always toted a rifle and a flask and seemed to crave both revolution and battle. He was one of 160 scholars, scientists, and artists, savants, the press had labeled them, who had made the journey from France with him, since he'd come not only to conquer, but to learn. "You know, Gaspard, as a child I wanted to study science. But alas, circumstances made me an army officer." One of the Egyptian workers led his horse away, but not before he grabbed a leather satchel. He and Monge now stood alone in the shadow of the Great Pyramid. "A few days ago," he said, "I performed a calculation and determined that these 3 pyramids contain enough stone to build a wall 1 meter wide and 3 meters high around the whole of Paris." Monge seemed to ponder his assertion. "That could well be true, General." He smiled. "Spoken like a doubting mathematician." "Not at all. I just find it interesting how you view these edifices. Not in relation to the pharaohs, or the tombs they contain, or even the amazing engineering used to construct them. No, you view these only in terms related to France." "I think of little else." Since his departure, France had fallen into impossible disarray. Its once great fleet had been destroyed by the British, isolating him here in Egypt. The ruling Directory seemed intent on warring with every royalist nation, making enemies of Spain, Prussia, Austria, and Holland. Conflict to them seemed a way to prolong their power and replenish a dwindling national treasury. Ridiculous. The République was an utter failure. "France needs you," Monge said. "Now you speak like a true revolutionary." His friend laughed. "Which you know I am." 7 years ago, Napoleon had watched as other revolutionaries stormed the Tuileries Palace and dethroned Louis XVI. He'd then faithfully served the new republic and fought at Toulon, afterward promoted to brigadier general, then to general of the Eastern Army, and finally commander in Italy. From there he'd marched north and taken Austria, returning to Paris a national hero. Now, barely 30, as general of the Army of the Orient, he'd conquered Egypt. But his destiny was to rule France. "Take me inside," he ordered. His friend led him up a ladder on the north face to a platform 20 meters high. He bent down and wiggled into a corridor no more than a meter high and equally as wide, which descended at a mild gradient through the pyramid's core. The leather satchel swung from his neck. They came to another corridor hewn upward, which Monge entered. The gradient now climbed, heading toward a lighted square at the far end. They emerged and were able to stand, the wondrous sight filling him with reverence. In the flickering glow of oil lamps he spied a ceiling that rose nearly 10 meters. The floor steeply planed upward through more granite masonry. Walls projected outward in a series of cantilevers that built on each other to form a narrow vault. "It is magnificent," he whispered. "We've started calling it the Grand Gallery. An appropriate label." At the foot of each side wall, a flat-topped ramp, half a meter wide, extended the length of the gallery. A passage measuring another meter ran between the ramps. No steps, just a steep incline. "Is he up there?" he asked Monge. "Oui, General. He arrived an hour ago, and I led him to the king's chamber." He still clung to the satchel. "Wait outside, below." Monge turned to leave, then stopped. "Are you sure you wish to do this alone?" He kept his eyes locked ahead on the Grand Gallery. He'd listened to the Egyptian tales. Supposedly, through the mystic passageways of this pyramid had passed the Illuminati of antiquity, individuals who'd entered as men and emerged as gods. This was a place of second birth, a womb of mysteries, it was said. Wisdom dwelled here, as God dwelled in the hearts of men. His savants wondered what fundamental urge had inspired this Herculean engineering labor. But for him, there could be but one explanation. This was a gateway to the eternal. "It is only I who can do this," he muttered. Monge left. He strode ahead, climbing the steep grade. He estimated its length at about 120 meters, and he was winded when he reached the top. A high step led into a low-ceilinged gallery that flowed into an antechamber. The king's chamber opened beyond, more walls of polished red stone, the mammoth blocks fitted so close only a hairbreadth remained between them. The chamber was a rectangle about half as wide as long, hollowed from the pyramid's heart. Flat slabs of granite formed a ceiling 10 meters above. Light seeped in from 2 shafts that pierced the pyramid from the north and the south. The room was empty save for a man and a rough, unfinished granite sarcophagus without a lid. Monge had mentioned how the tubular drill and saw marks from the ancient workmen could still be seen on it. And he was right. He'd also reported that its width was less than a centimeter greater than the width of the ascending corridor, which meant it had been placed here before the rest of the pyramid was built. The man, facing the far wall, turned. His shapeless body was draped in a loose surtout, his head wrapped in a wool turban, a length of calico across one shoulder. His Egyptian ancestry was evident, but remnants of other cultures remained in a flat forehead, high cheekbones, and broad nose. Napoleon stared at the deeply lined face. "Did you bring the oracle?" the man asked him. He motioned to the leather satchel. "I have it." Napoleon emerged from the pyramid. He'd been inside for nearly an hour, and darkness had now swallowed the Giza plain. He'd told the Egyptian to wait inside before leaving. He straightened the leather satchel across his shoulder. He found the ladder and fought to control his emotions, but the past hour had been horrific. Monge waited on the ground, alone, holding the reins of Napoleon's horse. "Was your visit satisfactory, mon général?" He faced his savant. "Hear me, Gaspard. Never speak of this night again. Do you understand me? No one is to know I came here." His friend seemed taken aback by his tone. "I meant no offense." He held up a hand. "Never speak of it again. Do you understand me?" The mathematician nodded, but he caught Monge's gaze as he glanced past him.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?